Hey, and welcome to the AV Forums Movies Podcast, streaming live on Wednesday, 15th of September, 2021. It's a podcast where we discuss movies and TV through the prism of AV. I'm Captain...
You're not reading that at all, are you?
Sorry, hang on a second. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I'm Admiral Kaz Harlow. And joining me today, I've got Renegade Super Soldier Mark Noonian Singh.
Evening all.
I've got Vija expert Commander Steve Withers.
I was hoping we were going to go for Rear Admiral, actually.
Well, we're continuing our voyages through...
Void, or don't say void, that's spoilers.
Yes, voyages through more 4K related dimensions after last time's dip into 4K boutique labels. We're going to take you through the brand new release of the, if you can see it, first 4 original Star Trek movies in native 4K with Dolby Vision. Going to look at their presentations in detail, and we're going to try and help you figure out if it's worth owning Wrath of Khan and whether that outweighs the cost of buying the other 3. First, let's take a quick run through our competitions. Mark?
Cheers, Kaz. So you lucky people out there can win at this present moment in time Acorn's releases of the Shudder exclusive Terrified and Beelzebub on Blu-ray, and Studio Canal's 4K restoration of Mr. Klein on Blu-ray, all of which are very well reviewed on my September Blu-ray roundup that was published today. Check it out. In addition, also on Blu-ray, you can win the excellent HBO Kate Winslet series Mayor of Easttown, Criterion September titles, The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, May Gray, the complete series on limited edition, and The Father, which is a patron exclusive competition. And on 4K Blue, you can win The Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard and A Quiet Place Part 2 Survival Bundle. But finally, the Daddy is a Valencia Theatre seating luxury recliner worth £1,400, you lucky people.
Thank you, Mark.
You're very welcome, Kaz.
So head over to avforums.com/competitions to enter. All competitions are open to eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK. And stay tuned for the podcast exclusive competition to win a 2-movie bundle, including Space Classics Moon and The Right Stuff on Blu-ray. So as mentioned, we're going to have a look at the Star Trek full movie collection in 4K and take a dive through those. So prepare to go to warp for our feature presentation.
If you enjoy the podcast on YouTube, then please like and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, then please leave us a rating on your podcast app. We invite you to email questions and feedback to podcast@avforums.com and join in with this episode's discussion thread in the podcasts forum at AV Forums.
Right, so we're talking Trek. We're talking possibly the best Trek, right? Really? I don't know.
The only Trek.
I mean,
Undiscovered Country, I've got a soft spot for.
Yes. So the original Trek I regard as the best Trek. Yes, I would include the Undiscovered Country, which I think is the glaring omission in this.
I think the way their logic is it's motion picture plus the Genesis trilogy.
Yes.
And then the next set will be 5, 6, and Generations. And then the last set will be the 3 standalone Next Generation.
But it would have been...
It kind of makes sense, but it would have been more sensible to do what they did last time, which is stick the first 6.
Yeah,
I've
still got
the 4 and another box.
The 6 movie box set around here, and yeah, they could have just done that.
I prefer the packaging. I prefer the packaging on that box set to.
It's gorgeous.
To this box set, it's much nicer and also more solid in its construction.
Yes,
this is a bit flimsy. I have to say the cardboard outside's a bit flimsy, and inside it's just two keep cases.
Well,
you
got the US.
I've got the US version, so I don't know how that differs from the UK.
Yeah, it's
maybe the UK's better.
Slightly thicker box. I can't really show it very well, but it's a slightly better box.
The box isn't too bad, but I preferred the packaging on there. But most of the extras seem to be here, as far as I can tell. So at least that's been ported over.
So Paramount have remastered this. They've done the first 4 movies: Motion Picture, Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, Voyage Home. So we're going to have a look through all of them. So I guess we've got to start with Motion Picture.
That would seem logical.
It would seem logical, yes, yes. We can start. Oh, we could start before it. I mean, it's going to go on forever if we start before it. But from what I can tell, and I did cover this a lot in the review, the original series was very successful, and they did the 3 seasons, and then they planned on doing phase 2. And phase 2 was going to introduce a younger cast.
I was going to say that the original series was moderately popular at the time, but was cancelled after season 3. It got very popular in syndication.
It was, but it was successful enough to warrant phase 2.
Well, phase 2 was designed to be to launch Paramount's own own network in the States.
So they had,
and then Star Wars came.
They had the whole cast. They had everyone hooked up. They had a younger cast.
They didn't have Nimoy. They didn't have Nimoy.
They didn't. I don't. I mean, him and Kirk, they wandered in and out of contracts, didn't they? But yeah, they didn't have him. But they had a lot of the returning cast members ready to go, and then they didn't like the look of the numbers and the cost, and they ditched it and went motion picture instead. And they revamped the first 2 episodes, the pilot episode, the script, and they made it into a movie. They did a lot of effects. They got halfway through it. They saw Star Wars and they went, no, it's got to be bigger than this. And that's why we have this kind of odd blend of 2001 and Star Wars as a result.
Well, I mean, we ended up with that partly because Doug Trumbull's doing the effects, but he wasn't the original guy doing the effects. The original guy. I've got a great book. If you look on Amazon, you can find it. It came out only late last year, and it's about the art and special effects of Star Trek: The Motion Picture, and it covers the original effects guy was basically a bullshitter. He said, "Yeah, I can do this, I can do that," and then after 6 months, he had nothing to show for it. And they had a fixed release date, and they were like, "Oh my God, we need to get this done." And so they brought in Trumbull, who had to really, I mean, was against the clock the entire time. The fact it looks as good as it does, given the amount of time he had, is amazing. Because some of the stuff, like the opening, the love letter to the Enterprise when they fly up to it, which I love, I have loved since I saw it at the cinema in '79. That's an amazing piece of, a 5-minute sequence, which must have been a bastard to shoot.
Yeah.
But it looks, even today, it looks fantastic.
Yes, I did. I did think it was an indulgent movie, I have to say.
Oh, well.
I mean, I did. You know what? I have a lot of love for a newfound appreciation for the motion picture. As a kid, I didn't hit it when it came out in the cinemas. I must have seen it later down the line, and I found it hard to get through and hard to get on board with. I hadn't really been massively into the original series, and so my love for Star Trek kind of came reversed in, and it was only really with Khan that I got on board it. But
I think more than anything, the motion picture, it was for the fans. It came about because of the fans, and as Steve said, the love it was getting in syndication. And I think it's the one out of all of them that the more familiarity you have, certainly with the OG series, the more love you have for it. I think it's
the most Star Trek film, isn't it?
The purest Trek. Pure. Absolutely.
I saw it at the cinema in '79 and I really enjoyed it, but I went with my grandfather and he fell asleep and snored really loudly through most of the second half of the film.
Yeah, and you can see that. I can see
I can totally understand why he was bored to tears. I thought it was amazing because I was massively into sci-fi, massively into Star Trek and Star Wars, and I thought the effects were amazing and it had all the cast there and it was a proper Star Trek movie. I loved it. I absolutely loved it, but and continue to love it to this day. It's not my favorite Star Trek film, that is Wrath of Khan, but I love it to this day. And I just admire the fact they had the balls to make, this is 2 years after Star Wars, and the only time they fire a phaser in this is when the asteroid's stuck in the wormhole. So you got to admire the courage of not doing a Star Wars. I mean, obviously, after that they thought, let's do a Star Wars and do it cheaper because it cost like 40 million, which was one of the most expensive films of all time at the time. Admittedly, they almost certainly shoved all the costs for phase 2 and everything else into it as well. So I don't. But Robert Wise is directing, Roddenberry's producing. They got the original cast. They got what Doug Trumbull on effects. You know, it's a spectacle. And that was the point, wasn't it? It was called Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Like, this isn't TV, folks. This is big screen.
Totally agree, Steve. But the balance that it got with sort of, you know, the character development of the cat. I mean, obviously, you know, you can argue till the cows come home. The majority of these original films sidelined pretty much all the cast outside of the Holy Trinity. But if you take Kirk in the motion picture, you know, you meet him and he's a surly man baby. You know, he's pouting that I've been promoted far quicker than I want to. All these medals on my chest are wearing me down. All I want to do is go out and, you know, meet space girls and stuff like that. And it had the balls to present him as that, you know, and through, I think certainly watching the first 4 films in this set all together in close proximity. You can see the very human arc of certainly Kirk going through, you know, the kind of natural life changes that happens as you get older. And the fact that these films managed to balance that with, as Steve said, you know, the massive spectacle, the space battles in the later films, you know, the indulgent flyovers. I have a newfound respect for these films watching them now. And this is about the 10th, 13th time I've seen them all. But that balance for me is spot on.
It's been non-stop going back to them.
I agree that they gave Spock and Kirk a decent character arcs. McCoy's pretty much McCoy as he was in the show. I love it when he first turns up wearing his disco outfit with his, you know, big medallion, big beard. It's like, what are you doing, you know?
And he just says, "I don't want to be here today."
Planet. Yeah. Obviously, when I was 12 years old, Persis Kambata and a little short skirt was a big winner for me as well. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it, and I know it didn't get necessarily great reviews from non-Trek fans, but at the time, I think people said it was long and self-indulgent and boring, and obviously Paramount was like, and it's expensive. But I think it stands up today. Of all the 4 films, effects-wise, it stands up the best, and that's amazing when you consider they had to do those effects in 8 months.
Yeah. Well, they definitely blew the budget all on that first one. How do we think it shapes up in 4K? Because, I mean, there's no doubt going into this, we've got to preface it with the fact that it does look better than it's ever looked before.
Oh, gotcha. It's way better than it's ever looked.
It's phenomenal to revisit these. This is the best way to enjoy the Star Trek movies. But it's not quite perfect. And I think we're all okay with that.
It's a 42-year-old movie. Obviously lots of optical composites in it, so it's never going to look brilliant because there's a lot of optical work in there, and back in the day there was always some softness around anamorphic lenses, so
around Kirk.
Well, no, he's got his toupee and his girdle on, isn't he? So holding his breath most of that film, I think. I mean, I think it looks about as good as it can look without a major restoration, which I believe is what they're in the middle of doing right now. So when they're going to really go in and actually touch up the effects and things like that. So they did do a couple of minor touches up, I think, but I think it looks a downside better than the Blu-ray, which was DNR to death. So it certainly looks nice and film-like to me.
I mean, the Blu-rays were very waxy.
Yeah,
and I think watching them. I mean, we'll get to it, but like for example, Voyage Home. I mean, Voyage Home was a very, very waxy effort, and I don't have any of those complaints here. I think that when I watch films in 4K which have effects like you described, Steve, there's a scene where McCoy, Kirk, and Spock are all talking with a space screen in the background, and it's a composite. There's space.
Yeah.
Now on the close-ups of each of the characters, it's immaculate. It looks absolutely tremendous. So for me, that's the measure of the quality of the transfer, even though the long shot with that optical effect in the background looks horrendous. The fact that in the same scene, the close-ups look great, gives me the warm feeling that they've done a good job here.
The downside to watching anything these days in 4K, particularly older films, is that there's no way to hide at 4K. So every time they go to an optical, it's obvious. Like you can tell when a scene change is coming up or dissolves coming up, suddenly the resolution just disappears. Or when they've taken a shot where they've got the shot, but they've realized they should have done a close-up. So then they've zoomed in on somebody and it cuts to that shot. And again, it's an optical. And you're like, oh my God, they've zoomed in on that shot, something chronic. And it just stands out now at 4K in a way that it probably wouldn't have at Blu-ray, and certainly never would have at standard definition. So, but at the end of the day, I've got Star Trek: The Motion Picture in 4K. 7.1 soundtrack is still good. It was a good soundtrack back when the Blu-ray came out. Obviously, they are doing an Atmos remix for the director's cut of the motion picture, which is coming out next year, I believe. But it sounds great. It looks great. Jerry Goldsmith's score is, well, to this day, is iconic. Obviously, it was used as a theme music for Next Generation, but I've got no complaints. No complaints.
Yeah. I very much enjoyed revisiting it, and it's probably the most I've enjoyed that entry. But nothing's going to take the next one off my top spot. I regard Wrath of Khan as one of my all-time favorite movies. I think they nail everything for me in that. It's the best naval battle movie, up there with Master and Commander and Hunt for Red October. I think they get that right, and they actually get the story in terms of both the micro, which is the revenge plot, and the personal to Kirk, his son, and Spock, the big shock. But they also get the larger scale threat, the kind of traditional Star Trek threat of this Genesis device, which can, reformat planets. I think they just nailed it, and it came at a time, I think, post Alien. So in watching the two in close succession, motion picture was like clean corridors, and nothing could go wrong in this ship that wasn't to do with some external factor. This ship is a safe haven. Watching Wrath of Khan in a post kind of Alien universe, they were checking corridors that were already all of a sudden dark. There were bodies that suddenly fell down from the ceiling, which had been hung up by Khan. There were the space alien creatures that would crawl into your ear. I mean, all of a sudden it had
giant fake ear.
Yeah, exactly. The giant fake ear. Yeah. All of a sudden it had twinges of horror in it. I know it was still a, Star Trek movie, but I think it's the highest rating of all of them. It got a 12 eventually, but certainly it seems a bit harder than the others.
It may have been trimmed when it was first released in this country.
Yeah, I think you're right. So that close-up ear.
Yeah, although I think that was definitely in there, because I saw it at the cinema again when I was 22, I was 15. So I can remember thinking that's a really fake ear. So it was definitely in there, maybe a little bit less graphic, but it's an absolute joy to watch. It really
but again, it got so much of the basics right, but it stands on the shoulders of the motion picture. Think how much, the end of Wrath of Khan, the impact that had. I mean, Christ, I watch it now and I you only get.
Do you know what I love in that ending? I love it when Spock stands up in just his uniform,
pulls his tunic down.
Yes.
No, because it's his captain he's talking to.
Yeah.
Even in his death, he's still an officer. It's really.
And it's so beautifully earned, obviously off the back of the motion picture, and obviously off the back of the 3 series we got. You want to see how not to do it? Watch Into Darkness. That's how you don't. That's how you don't. That's how you don't earn that ending.
Yeah, no, you totally. I rewatched Space Seed after watching Wrath of Khan, because it's on Netflix, and obviously back in '67. There weren't a lot of Indian actors in Hollywood, if any. So they got in a Renton ethnic, which is basically Ricardo Montalban. Blacked him up, frankly. Let's be honest about this. He played a Sikh. They didn't bother with, he's still playing Khan, but they kind of just left. They didn't bother. Thankfully, they didn't try blacking him up for the movie. But why the hell is Benedict Cumberbatch playing him? Because Benedict Cumberbatch is definitely not a Sikh. Couldn't they have hired an ethnically correct actor at this point if they're going to use that character? He's called, so is it Khan Noonien Singh? I mean, that's his full name. I mean, he's actually called a Sikh in the episode of Star Trek when they first discover Khan's, in suspended animation. So I just don't get the Benedict Cumberbatch thing. But you're right, the film itself is terrible because it doesn't earn that ending. Whereas obviously this one does. This one absolutely earns it.
Yeah, it doesn't earn it, and then it doesn't carry it through. It's like it doesn't.
I love the whole Kurt getting old and not being able to deal with it is really good too.
Yes. Yeah.
It's a nice character arc again for his character. This time it's he's dealing with getting old.
But again, at the same time, he's dealing with the consequences of youth. He spent the first film desperate to get back to that roguish space adventurer. And the second film, it smacks him in the face. You want to be that guy? Yeah. Well, look what you
do. Now he realizes his back's not up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although when watching Wrath of Khan, I think it's been one of recent experiences. It's one of those movies which has had the most fist pump moments. Like every time they have an encounter, Kirk is totally on the back foot. The Enterprise is decimated. What's going to happen? And I just love his, I just need a minute, Khan, and just putting his glasses on and trying to plug in. It's a real
outcome.
Our shields are going down, Captain. It's just really, really nicely done. And he does it a couple of times in the movie. And it is definitely a kind of a R. Foreman situation where you just don't know how. Even rewatching it, he's really been pummeled in this movie.
Yeah, but again, you got Montalban goes. Let's face it, not many people can go toe to toe with Shatner.
Not many people overact Shatner.
Exactly. But Montalban and quite frankly, those boobs. They did a fantastic job. That he was there every step of the way.
I'm pretty sure watching it in 4K, those are his own pecs.
They are. Yeah, they are. It's quite worrying, really. But yes, they are.
He's in good shape for a man of his age, I've got to say.
It's a fabulous script, really good villain. I think they absolutely nailed it.
Good direction by somebody who is, by his own admission, not a Star Trek.
No, he wasn't. Yeah,
Nicholas Meyer brought an interesting outside take on the thing. And first of all, he made Starfleet more militaristic, I suppose.
Yes, very naval.
Kind of makes sense because it's called Starfleet, and whereas the Roddenberry version is all a bit sort of loosey goosey and everyone's a bit of a hippie. Certainly, in Star Trek, the motion picture.
So is that why then? The motion picture very Trekky for the Trekkers. Wrath of Khan, someone who basically doesn't give two hoots about Star Trek, comes in, blows it. Is that part of what makes Wrath of Khan so good?
Meyer returned to Hornblower, didn't he? And that was what Roddenberry. That's what Roddenberry originally based his ideas of Star Trek on. So it kind of came full circle. And I think even Shatner himself has often said he took note of Hornblower in how he envisaged Star Trek to be. So I think it did come full circle. But I do agree that it was an outsider who really managed to focus it into, the perfect Star Trek movie. It's such a joy to watch again and again. But he hated it, didn't he? Meyer hated it because they went to some park somewhere and filmed a coffin and stuck it on as the ending, and he didn't want that.
It does slightly diminish.
Yeah,
Spock's sacrifice by sort of putting in a nudge wink, he'll be back.
Yeah, the trouble is, a couple of years later, I guess it was, the nail in the coffin was titling the next movie "Search for Spock," because I don't think I ever was around at a time when I really was convinced Spock was gone for good, because I knew the next movie was called Search for Spock.
Search for Spock. And if you could find somebody back then who would have bet you they didn't find him at the end of that film, bite their arm off and take that bet. Because...
I tell you what, though, 10-year-old me, though, was very grateful for that end of Wrath of Khan, because I tell you, the floods of tears I was in. Oh, my God. If I'd have had to go to bed thinking he's really dead, that'd have been it. The next year or three of my life would have been ruined.
Yeah. And how do we think it looks in 4K?
I think it looks bloody awesome.
It does, doesn't it? It's the best of the set, I reckon.
It's easily the best looking disc. And considering it was shot with a TV crew and relatively cheaply and quickly.
Yeah, 12 million, less than a third of the budget of the first movie.
It looks really good. It's really well shot. And ILM do some nice, decent effects too. I was quite surprised at how good it looked, actually.
The best bit's the nebula. And it's a practical effect, isn't it? I can't remember, they do it with gas and gels, but it looks absolutely stunning. It's, yeah. And
obviously, did you watch director's cut or theatrical version?
I always go directors. I like the extra little bits. It's only
you need to know. Yeah. You need to know that guy is Scotty's nephew. Otherwise, this doesn't make any sense. Although why Scotty brings him to the bridge rather than the medical bay is beyond me.
Yeah, he's not the greatest actor, but I do agree. I don't know why Scotty just suddenly turns up, other than for dramatic effects.
Yeah, I know, but it's like, why didn't you
She's so very Scotty.
Yeah, but I like the little things, like the elevator's broken and they have to use the tubes to climb around. That makes it very much like a submarine. And I suppose that's what they're trying to play for. So I like the added touches. I always go director's cut. And it's a great soundtrack, and it's Horner, isn't it? Second time round.
James Horner reusing the score from Battle Beyond the Stars.
Yeah, which I had no problem with. I thought it was fantastic.
Before he then reuses it again for Aliens.
And again for
he's terrible for reusing his score.
He is, but the thing about it is the key motifs he hits every time. Like, he's got a signature for Khan and the Reliant, and then he's got a signature for Kirk. It's really well done. You really get the feeling of threat from his score. I liked it, and I think that the track, again, not Atmos upgraded, I think the track did a good job.
7.1 though.
Yeah,
still good.
Yeah, it is. So they set it up, perfect Star Trek, and everyone knew what the next one is going to tell. What did we think of Search for Spock?
I'm a Search for Spock apologist, quite frankly. I don't mind it. I can recognise all of its faults. Its treatment of David after the mega importance he was to the, in the second film, completely sidelined. Losing Kirstie Alley as Saavik, I think,
that was a big mistake.
Was
they should have paid her what she wanted.
Poor old Robin Curtis couldn't. She just didn't have the presence that Ali did. And there's so many other little things that you can pick holes in it, but frankly, I think the way that it handled that main, how is he still alive? Oh, there's this magical, mystical Vulcan thing, which means Vulcans can live forever, quite frankly. Where's that come from? Hey, what? But it worked in the concept, because, again, they took Kirk, and it went from, he's getting older, even though it's not a huge amount of time has passed since the second one. He suddenly realised that all those things he felt mattered to him, his career, his ship, everything, meant nothing because he's lost his family, his friend, and it's solely about anything Kirk will do to get Spock back. And I was there with him, quite frankly. I'm there, and all the crap that went with it, all the, McCoy doing the rubbish, impression of Spock. None of that mattered, because I was in it for that central through line of the things that Kirk will do. And of course, it gave us the Klingons. Quite frankly, it gave us the Klingons as we know them now. Yeah. It set them up completely. Their look, their aggression, who they were. The Bird of Prey kicks so much arse in terms of being, a fantastically cool starship, that I can look past almost all the faults in Search for Spock. And I will say this again, I cried just as much at the death of the Enterprise as I did at the death of Spock. So, I'm a huge apologist for the third one.
Steve?
I think it's bollocks. Interestingly, it's the only of the original Star Trek cast movies that I didn't see at the cinema. I had no interest when it came out. I just thought, obviously they're going to find him. And all that mystical stuff is so un-Vulcan. My whole point about Vulcans are that they're logical scientists, not mystical, wobbly bobbly, here we go, spirit and essence and whatever. It's shite. It's absolute cobblers. And I really, really don't like it. I watched it last night and I thought, I'm not going to watch that again in a hurry. It looked okay as a disc, but it looks well cheap. I mean, the 4K really shows how cheap some of those sets are. The
It does.
Genesis planet
Yes.
is about the size of a postage stamp, apparently, and yeah, it's. I mean, probably the only thing that really saves it is Christopher Lloyd.
He's having a great time, isn't he?
He's having a ball.
I mean, him, and the, as Mark says, the interpretation of the Klingons. I mean, they were never really the threat they were in that. I mean, I know they went full Cold War Ruskies, but I mean, they were a real threat. You know, it's so cold the way he goes, kill one of the prisoners to make my point. I mean,
or the woman who brought in the Genesis information.
That would be
ludicrous. Oh well, sorry, love.
Sorry, couldn't he have just beamed her up?
Yeah,
Just-
a bit. I know. Was it because she knew about it? Couldn't you just? Everyone on the ship, on his ship, knew about it, presumably. Or
just beam her up. It's like,
I think that was his girlfriend. He was just trying to get rid of her.
I agree. I think it's like,
what I don't understand is that having, in Star Trek 2, Kirk's approaching the what's the name of the starship? The Reliant. He's approaching the Reliant, and his shield's down, and then Kirsty out, Savik's going, this is how you should approach a ship you haven't made communication with. He gets caught out and says, keep quoting regulations.
the rules, yeah.
He makes exactly the same mistake a second time. The Genesis planet in Star Trek 3. Well, Chekhov was saying, I think I saw a spaceship out there. Well, put your shields up then. And also, if this is such a big deal and so secret and such a powerful weapon, why aren't there starships defending it? This is what, just left it open to a science vessel?
Yeah, they tried their best to fudge over that with it being an embarrassment to the.
The bit I like best is the spaceport stuff at the beginning. When the Enterprise comes back into port with its battle damage, I think that's a really good scene.
The tense set piece that's basically the Enterprise reversing out of Stardust.
A 3-point
oh my god, he's reversing.
Is the door gonna open?
In fact, that Scotty could just disable an entire starship with like
3 knots.
Couple of ball bearings.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've got time for some of that, but I do think it's I personally find it weaker, and I suppose I feel like although it got the job done, they had the plot set up from the last movie, and there's so many ways they could have run with that. Like, you knew Spock was on the Genesis planet, you knew that the Genesis planet like reformatted everything. They could have done it a lot of ways, and I don't know whether they did it the best way. But I do like that they gave us proper mean Klingons, and I thought that the Bird of Prey, and this comes onto the 4K, it was the only standout thing for me on that 4K disc. I mean, the presentation of 3, because it's quite a budget movie. It's got more budget than the second movie, but I still think it looks cheaper. And there's nothing really stand out.
It's because of the planet stuff. The planet stuff looks well cheap. That looks like TV Star Trek from the 60s.
Yeah, it does. All windy hails and everything. But the actual Bird of Prey model, I think it looks fantastic.
Well, that looks great. And like I said, the spaceport stuff looks really nice too.
Yes, yes, they did. They built the model, didn't they?
It was ILM again, and they did a really good, good job.
Model.
I do like the fact that the security footage on the Enterprise is actually edited with different camera angles because they were using stuff from Star Trek 2. Like, that's an impressive security camera. It edits and gives you close-ups.
They do the same trick in 4 though. So.
Well, they reuse an awful lot of footage in some of these films. You keep seeing the same shots over and over again. They reuse the whole Leaving Star Trek 2. They reuse the entire Leaving Space dry dock from Star Trek 1, don't they?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of cutting going on. I understand why they did it because they basically booted out Roddenberry because he cost them a fortune the first time.
They reused the costumes. I think the white costumes in the first movie.
I'm surprised that Shatner could fit into his costume in the latter films.
So, what do we make of the 4th movie? Because I want to preface this with the fact that only in watching all 4 and reviewing them in succession and going a lot into the background detail, I suddenly felt like when watching them, I was basically watching a series of feature-length TV episodes in a good way. because you had the opening episode, which was a pilot for a new TV series of Star Trek, and their concepts were very Star Trek in nature. The second one was like a big screen version of Space Seed.
Yeah.
The third one was like a big screen version of a Klingon episode from the old series. And the fourth one was like a big screen, we're going to go back in time and just have a bit of a laugh.
Good old school, go back in time and save us some money episodes.
They're all episodes from the original series. So watching the fourth one, I know it gets a lot of flack, but seen through that prism, I felt like, I was watching movie versions of one of my favorite ever TV shows, and I had time for 4. It was funny. They were all having a really, really good time. I mean, little things like Kirk and Spock when he's like, where the hell am I? Where the hell's my engine? And Spock's like, give me a damn minute, Captain. They're both suddenly, swearing in inverted commas. It's really good.
It's the most overtly comedic. The whole like, what is exact change? That kind of stuff is quite funny. And obviously, Star Trek's always played a bit loose with time travel. But some of the best episodes in the series were like "It's City on the Edge of Forever" is a great episode, one with Joan Collins, where Kirk has to let her die to stop Hitler from winning World War II. So obviously there was also a cost factor here. It's like if we set it in San Francisco in 1986, it's not going to cost as much. But I tell you what, kudos to them for having an eco message that far back,
which works.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
I watched it.
It's very trendy now, but there wasn't that trendy in '86.
And it was graphic. Like they showed the whales being like skinned and torn apart. It was really proper graphic. It was really making a statement, but not in a way that made me think, oh, they're just preaching. I thought it was really well integrated. I don't think they could do it that subtly and effectively these days. So,
it was always a redheaded stepchild. It was always a redheaded stepchild, the first 4 for me. Just because for all the stuff you mentioned, it was too overtly comedic. It felt like too much of a retread of the first film. A mythical, huge, unknown thing is coming, laying waste to everything in its path, and it needs to have a message that no one can decide. It felt too close to the motion picture, but I hate to say this, I really enjoyed it on the rewatch I did this morning. Whether or not it was exactly as you said, Kaz, watching it as part of a whole now, as opposed to, a standalone as I've watched it before. You can feel the franchise is almost ready for that change of pace. It needed that humour. The original series, exactly like you said, there was a balance. One episode will be really dark, one will be light and frothy. I mean, we got Tribbles, for God's sake. So I think as a series of films, it needed this. And yeah, I have a newfound appreciation for it after years of hating on it after watching it again.
Yeah, I think I can see how it's warmed on me as well, because I can completely relate to that feeling that what the hell have they done to Star Trek? Because when I first watched it, I wanted another Wrath of Khan.
Yeah,
I mean, I didn't know, and it's ironic because when I was a kid, watching Voyage Home and watching the fifth one were a chore, and I've got time for some of the fifth one, but watching them were a chore, and getting from Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock to Undiscovered Country was really the journey. And I think it's you, Mark, that mentioned what they should have done. Tell us what they should have done with Undiscovered Country.
Well, they should have just had that as part 4. The flow could have come. I'm sure you could have weaved the two together with the Klingon elements around. The end of 3, coming back to Earth. And all that. So I just think if they could have, and I'm sure they haven't thought of it at that point, but the by far the better Genesis trilogy for me would have been 2, 3, and 6 all together as one big continuous story. But
and I agree with this, because I think that Kirk doesn't really ever fully address what happened to his son and the hatred he has for Klingons until 6.
Yeah.
And having that gap in 4 and 5, as much as I enjoy watching certainly 4 and will try and get through 5 again, the reality is he doesn't get that closure until 6. So it is interesting.
They also kind of lay the groundwork in 3, because Christopher Lloyd's character talks about them suing for peace, the Klingon Empire suing for peace. So that aspect of Star Trek 6 has already been set up in a way. But I gotta say, when I saw Voyage Home at cinema in '86, I loved it. That's great. Really enjoyed it. So it was a big hit, wasn't it? The most successful?
It was. Well, it was that flavor, wasn't it? Back to the Future and crossed with kind of the feel of, I don't know, Coming to America.
It was the Trek film that for non-Trek fans. That's what it was. You didn't have to see anything. You didn't have to know the history of these characters. You could just go and watch strange future people prattling about and making idiots of themselves, on the big screen. It was the one that any non-Trek fan I speak to, it's the one they've seen and it's the one they'll say they like. So it had that massive appeal outside of the Trek fan base, I think, which helped it.
It did.
Does quite a good job too of redeeming. Obviously, Kirk committed treason in Star Trek 3 and blew up the Enterprise. So at the end of 4, he's forgiven for his misdemeanors, and they've given him a new Enterprise A back. So he's like, oh, great, thank you.
He got a pretty good ride for that, though. But he did save the entire galaxy.
That's what I mean. He saved planet Earth, so they let him off, committing treason and blowing up a starship that did not belong to him.
Yeah,
just to save his mate. He disobeyed orders. He put the entire Federation at risk because of his own big ego.
I blame the guy he was talking to. It must have been the rear admiral or the general, the guy he was talking to in the Federation when he said, I need to go back to Genesis. Give me a ship, any ship. I need to go back to Genesis. And the guy's like, you can't do it. We're not going to give you a ship. No one's going near that planet. Get it out of your head. And Kirk
no one's going near that planet, but we haven't put any protection around.
Yeah. But Kirk's response is, I just had to ask, with a big smile on his face. And I thought everyone knows he's just going to go and steal a ship. I mean, come on. Anyway, what do we think of it in 4K? I'm relying on you, Steve.
I was going to say.
Oh yeah, you haven't played this one yet. Oh well, okay.
No, you can't. I can't really comment. I'll go watch it after this podcast.
So from my point of view, I thought that that the reality was it wasn't stand out like Khan, but it was stand out for me because I always remembered the Blu-ray being really waxy, maybe even more so than the other ones.
Overly sharpened, because I watched it this morning. So sharp, it has a dreadful digital look to it. It's horrible.
Yeah, and yes. So I've got
to say this film should benefit the most because there's very few actual optical effects in it. It's mostly just in camera.
Yes.
So
yes. But I think it doesn't, but it's still San Francisco 80s.
Yeah, it's all very brightly lit daytime shots. There's no artistry to the film.
No, there really isn't. And that's the thing.
Leonard Nimoy was not a great director.
Which is interesting. That brings us to our patron question, which was who was the best Star Trek director so far? And we looked at the poll, and by far, it was Meyer who won.
Yeah, obviously.
The director of the best two films.
I'd have loved it if William Shatner had got the.
Yeah, it would have been interesting. But I think it is interesting though, because one of Tom's points, and Tom, who can't be with us today, one of Tom's points, which is valid, was that he said that although Meyer was the better director, Nimoy brought the better interactions out of the characters.
Yeah, and which is obvious because he's an actor.
Yes, so really. I can see that he really nailed the characters and some of their interactions in his movies, even if he didn't have any visual artistry. It didn't have that same feeling as the Meyer one. But anyway, there's.
I'm surprised that Jonathan Frakes did quite well as well, didn't he? That's more for First Contact than Insurrection, I suspect. Because Insurrection looks like a TV episode. It's bloody awful.
Well, I think we're still judging it that he voted for himself in that one.
4 times.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think that we've trawled through all of those. What we were going to ask our podcast listeners was, and I'm a bit late to the conversation, but which of the other Trek movies, so 5 to 10. Are we going to count 10? Do we have to? Anyway, 5 to 10. Which are you most looking forward to seeing in 4K? And we might as well talk about it ourselves. What are we? I mean, I know what my obvious answer is, but what are we most looking forward to out of 5 to 10 in 4K?
It's going to be the same for all of us. Surely it's 6. It's Undiscovered Country. It's the best film outside of Cannes. But to be fair, do you know what? I've reappraised some of these films on recent watches. I'm actually quite keen to revisit
all of them.
If I'm honest, I'm quite keen to give Nemesis another go. I hated that in the cinema. I thought it was dreadful, but I haven't seen it since. Even though I've owned the Blu-ray, I've never watched it. But maybe it is time now to give it another go.
Maybe I think I'm going to apply that logic to 5. I'm not sure I can apply it to 10. I mean, I want to really reappraise 5 through the prism of knowing that they'd had no money for effects and it was a very handicapped production, and seeing whether there was anything salvageable in what was there, because that's generally regarded as the worst.
I think you'll probably discover that again the interplay between the characters will be good because Shatner's an actor, so he could handle that. And unfortunately, and I actually think probably he had more directorial flair than Nimoy. He just didn't have any money.
He didn't, yeah. I mean,
I could have just been an hour and a half of them around that campfire in Yellowstone.
Yeah, exactly, the campfire was
just hang out with those three while they bicker. I'd be down for that.
Yes. Are we having a good time? Yes. Yes, I've got a lot of time for that. I think the one that I least remember is Insurrection. I don't think I ever forgave Genesis.
You don't remember it. You don't remember it because it's massively forgettable. That's why you don't remember it.
Right.
It's just not good. Not good on any level. First Contact's fun, a bit more action oriented. Generations is silly. It's just trying to shoehorn it. I think it gives Shatner short shrift as well, frankly. I mean, you don't really want to. Kirk's death in that, sorry, spoilers, is
2 deaths,
shit, isn't it?
2 deaths.
Yeah, he dies twice.
He dies twice, and both of them are really
very good.
Stupid deaths. Yeah.
I want to see Kirk going out in a blaze of glory.
Yes. The only thing they get right is that he said he was always going to die alone, and so he keeps dying alone. But yeah, the 2 deaths, they did not do justice to Kirk.
I think the Star Trek 5 sets a worrying precedent, which unfortunately they carry through in Discovery, which is introducing previously unmentioned Spock relatives. Isn't Cyborg his half brother or something like that?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Although the actor I thought was very good. Was it something Luckenball?
Yeah, he's quite a good.
Lawrence Luckenball. I think he was pretty charismatic actually in a role where charisma was required.
And I seem to remember McCoy getting more screen time as well.
There was the bits when they were talking about their Share Your Pain With Me were some good bits, I thought. There was some really good acting and ideas in there. But when they get to that planet and it's God, I'm not joking, the entire audience is pissing itself laughing.
Well, Nichelle Nichols got the big fans out, didn't she?
Yeah. Was she 58 by that point?
It was not her high point. I personally like, my favorite bit with her is in 3 when they're going to steal the Enterprise.
Yeah, that's quite funny.
Cocky guy, and she's like, "You're going to get in the closet now." It's
she'd have a word with her agent because that's the last time you see her in that film, isn't it? Until right at the very end.
Oh yeah, they did short thrift for her as well. But Spock wasn't really in it either. Funnily enough,
not, but he was behind the camera.
He was, but in a movie called Search for Spock, they really did search for Spock the whole time.
Well, to be fair, there were 6 of them according to the credits.
Yes, they were. And
I love the scene where Savik's got to basically, for want of a better word, jerk off Spock through his teenage years.
I think it was supposed to be more than that because they wrote her character as being pregnant in the next one.
Oh yeah, that's right.
He was supposed to have Spock's child, but then they didn't follow through with it, and the actress is supposed
that would have
been
well
done. Yeah. How are we going to explain this to PG audiences? Yes, he slept with
she was rubbing his fingers, and that was pretty. We got the point.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, it's very good. Well, yes. Okay. I think we've done justice.
I'll tell you what did occur to me,
through them.
because by coincidence, the same day that these discs arrived, my copy of The Thing arrived. I was watching Khan and The Thing. God, I didn't know how good I had it in 1982. Road Warrior, I think it was 82. Tron, E.T., The Thing, Wrath of Khan, Poltergeist. I mean, they were dropping classics every week that year.
Yeah, it was a good year. Was it Blade Runner 82?
Blade Runner,
Yeah, Blade Runner 82. Yeah. It was insane the amount of most of these films, by the way, bombed.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yes,
but
that's true.
Wow, there was some classics coming out in 82.
They don't make them like they used to.
They really don't.
Well, I watched we're almost at the end of it, but I watched Khan and Into Darkness very close together, and I did think there was a time when they really could make a tense kind of space battle that didn't involve a billion things blowing up and shooting each other and just flying a ship through a crack in the wall and banging onto stuff. And, like it didn't have to be like that to be extremely tense. I mean, it's basically a game
tactics.
It is. I mean, I love Spock's turning around and saying he's very clever, but he seems to think in 2D.
2 dimensions, yeah.
Boom. That's really such a... Anyway, I know I'm showing my age here, but I do think that I wish they put that kind of consideration into movies like that. And they did it in like Master and Commander. They can still do it, but...
well, no one went to go and see that either.
No.
Yes. The problem is they make these films and then no one but us goes to see them.
Yes.
So they'd rather go and see the pew pew blowing up fucking Benedict Cumberbatch jumping around on the back of a spaceship beating up Spock, or vice versa.
Or speeder bike, or dirt bikes. Yes, they would.
Well, I mean, Nemesis is a bit guilty of that, to be fair. Haven't they got quad bikes or some sort of off-road vehicles, haven't they? But that was just what's his face? Patrick Stewart, who was obsessed the whole time. He was in Next Generation. He didn't want to be the sort of the diplomatic guy. He wanted to be more, as he put it, more effing and more fighting. He wanted to be more like Kirk.
He wanted
the whole
to be
point
Kirk.
of Picard was he wasn't Kirk.
Yeah.
Well, I thought Trek 09 was on the right path with its reboot. I have a lot of time for that, and I think what they did with the characters, what they did with the story, I thought they've really got the potential to go somewhere now. And unfortunately, the second film went to exactly the same place the previous second film did, and they lost all the goodwill, all the good work I think that they did. If they just held firm, because Star Trek 09 doesn't have a lot of that stuff that you talk about, the massive big space battle at the end with hundreds of thousands of things flying. It was much more about the characters, what they did with Bulk, all of that. I thought 09 really had potential. And and they lost it, which was a real shame.
The problem with Star Trek 09 is that J.J. Abrams knows sod all about science and doesn't care, because
it's quiet in space. It's quiet in space.
It's just that when Spock's watching Vulcan get destroyed, where is he watching it from? Does J.J. Abrams understand that space is really big and you just can't see one planet from another planet? It's dumb as a box of frogs, he really is. But some of the stuff, like the Kirk's birth at the beginning, is genuinely moving.
Yeah,
that sequence with a young a pre-Thor Chris Hemsworth is actually really well done. That's a really good scene that can bring a tear to the eye. But some of it is just a bit nonsense. But it certainly wasn't too bad. And then it went downhill very fast. Actually, I got a lot more time for Star Trek Beyond, which I thought Justin Lin directed really well.
I have time for that as well. Dirt bikes notwithstanding, I do at least it feels a bit different.
It's obviously pandering. Yeah, it's pandering to its audience, and I assume they assume their audience is 14-year-old boys when actually it's 50-year-old men, and they would need to work that out. Because if they keep making shows for people who don't care, they're going to keep losing money. They start making the films for people that actually are going to pay to see it, i.e. us. Then they'd start name. Same with the TV shows. I mean, I've given up on Star Trek on TV because it's absolute cobblers. I'd rather watch Foundation. I can't wait for that. And The Expanse, which is superb. So there's other good sci-fi, but unfortunately Star Trek on TV. What's his name? Kurt? No. What's the idiot who's in charge of it?
Kurtzman and Orchie.
Kurtzman. No, Archie. He's not. He's nothing to do with the TV series. Don't drag him into this. Kurtzman, though, is a moron.
Yeah,
and hasn't got a clue what he's doing. I don't understand why they keep renewing his contract, because I know they haven't made any money. I mean, Netflix dropped it. They dropped it because there was a failure, and they were stuck in for 2 more seasons they didn't want. Which is why they didn't want Picard. We don't want any more of this rubbish. But yeah, it's a really sad state of affairs that Star Trek finds itself in now. But at least we can still, enjoy the glory days.
Yes, enjoy the Wrath of Khan. Well, we've got just enough time to take a look at what's coming soon in the month. So let's run the ident
a lot
for coming soon. Engage.
If you'd like to support the AV Forums podcast on a regular basis, then why not become a patron? Head over to patreon.com/AV Forums to sign up. You can also make a one-off donation through the Super Chat or via streamlabs.com/AV Forums. All donations help us to improve the website and the podcasts. Thank you to all our supporters.
Right, so we're going to look at what's coming soon, but I just thought I'd give a shout out to our new patron, R1DDS. Thank you very much. It's very much appreciated that you're joining the fold of patrons. It's a good group of people to join. We have a lot of patron exclusive competitions. There's still odds on that you're going to snap up something nice if you're a patron, and there's all kinds of merch you can pick up, and all of the secret questions and podcast related stuff that even I don't have access to, I don't think. So yeah, you should definitely get on board. So thank you for joining.
Am I the only one in my imagination? R1DDS is a dustbin-shaped robot.
Yeah, he could be. Yes, brought sentient and has joined our club. So thank you. Although I need a universal translator probably to get through that. Right, so we've got Andy's lists is coming soon lists for September. I mean we're almost at the stage where we should pick October, but we're still on September. So what are we looking forward to in September, Steve?
You mean in disc-wise?
No, this is Andy's coming soon to Netflix. So you're going to have to. You've already mentioned it.
Foundation. I can't wait for.
We've mentioned it for like every week for the last month, but yes, it is Foundation, isn't it? Yeah,
Foundation. Really looking forward to that. And disc-wise, Clockwork Orange is out next week, I think.
It is. There's more and more.
I've got the thing already, so I know it's out next week in this country, but I've got it from the States, so that's well worth your time and money. And an absolute classic. And Black Widow, I think, is out next week as well, isn't it?
Black Widow's out this week, but
not a great film, if you want my opinion. I thought it was a bit mediocre, but I'll still get it to add to my Marvel collection. And obviously more. Did you see the trailer for Hawkeye? Because that looks quite good.
Oh, it looked amazing.
Very Shane Black. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it was very well set to Christmas.
Yeah.
Is he got anything to do with it? Because it was really Shane Black.
It was really Shane Black. Yeah. I hope he does have something to do with it, because I thought the tone was spot on.
Yeah, it looked good fun.
It did look very good. Mark, what are you thinking on streaming? Have you got anything?
Yeah, so I'm not a big Formula One fan, but I'm really intrigued by the Schumacher documentary that dropped on Netflix today. There just seems to be such a mythos surrounding this accident and who he now is, because we just haven't seen him, and it's intrigued me. So yeah, I'm going to be checking that out. I think that dropped today. I'm going to be cracking on with season 4 of Slasher, which is now on Shudder. And if any horror fans out there haven't watched the first 3 seasons of Slasher, which are on Netflix, get it watched. It is the most gruesome, nastiest. No, it plays into its roots. So narrative is all over the shop, but it knows it's all a complete bag of spanners. But the kills in it are proper next level. So I'm partway through season 4, where ironically David Cronenberg is one of the lead actors, which is
he's actually not a bad actor. Cronenberg's quite
he's
good.
not. He's not. He's really good in this. And of course, yes, Foundation is going to be watched. And disc-wise, yeah, Thing is en route for me. The other thing, though, I'm going to give a shout out are the Indicator Noir box sets. I've got the first 3 and they are stunning. And I've pre-ordered number 4, which is out on the 27th. Can't wait for that to arrive. Those are amazing sets with amazing films that hardly anyone's ever seen or heard of. So yeah, it's gonna be good back end of the month.
I've mentioned this on the hardware podcast, but I'll bring it up here because it's more appropriate, really. But it's a show that I'm really enjoying. I don't know if anyone else is watching it, but I recommend it highly, which is Only Murders in the Building with Steve Martin, which is
heard about
very
it.
entertaining. It's very entertaining. It's not too taxing. It's something you can it's a bit like Ted Lasso, which again, if you haven't seen, I thoroughly recommend because it's just a tonic to your soul. But this is like it's just kind of like a pair of comfortable slippers. You put it on.
Selena Gomez puts me off though.
I like Selena. I don't know what it is about her because her delivery is unbelievably monotone, but she's strangely compelling for some reason. I can't decide if she's the best actress or the worst actress in the world. But it's a fun show, and also American Horror Stories. I'm one episode in, but that's
I didn't listen to Tom. I didn't listen to Tom, and I sat through it last night. Should have listened to Tom. Always listen to Tom. Tom 4 is a thing of beauty.
It took me quite a while to work out that blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl was Michael Jackson's daughter. What? Hang on. Is that right? Does that work? Let me do the math on that one for a second. That was a bit of a shock. But anyway, and Ted Lasso. If you're not watching it, it's
definitely.
If it wasn't for Foundation as well, I mean, get Apple TV Plus because it's all quality.
It is
quantity.
Completely.
But I watch so much stuff on that. I mean, because everything they put up is something I actually want to see. Whereas Netflix is bombarded with stuff, and some of it's absolute cobblers. But every now and then you'll find something you're interested in.
Steve, have you seen Home Before Dark on there?
No, is that good?
Do you know what? You read the premise and it sounds rubbish. A 9-year-old investigative journalist looks into the dark secrets of the town. Honestly, it sounds rubbish, but you get proper Amblin vibes from it. There's 2 series on Apple TV. Really good cast. It's well worth watching. Check it out if you run out of stuff on there to watch.
It's the girl from Florida Project, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And obviously on Apple, they always look and sound fantastic, Atmos and vision.
Yeah.
Totally.
Go above and beyond. Yes.
Yeah. What are you, Cass?
Plenty to look forward to. That I'm going to segue away from. I mean, I would shout out to Midnight Mass. It's the guy who did Haunting of Hill House.
Yeah. When's that start?
7.
When does that drop?
I'm going to drop a random number in and say it's like next week. Or this week's. No, it's next week.
Well, it's the guy. Yeah, it's the guy that did the Haunting of Blair Manor and the Haunting of Hill House. So,
Mike Flanagan.
Let's hope it's Mike Flanagan. Thank you. Yeah, who also did Doctor Sleep, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, he did.
Which is really good. No, let's hope it's more Hill House than Bly Manor.
Yes.
I'm kind of looking forward to that. Right, let's do the podcast competition. To win a copy of The Right Stuff and Moon on Blu-ray, use the following question to select the correct answer. Where is Moon set?
Moon Base Alpha.
I'm going to go with that. Only a small percentage of the people who've answered so far have got that correct, and now you all feel like fools. But yeah, good luck with that. Please become a patron for perks. I think I've already mentioned those. Hosted content, sweet deals on merch, exclusive competitions. And that is it for the AV Forums Movies podcast this week. My thanks to Mark Costello.
TTFN, everyone.
And Steve Withers.
Live long and prosper.
Very nice. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to the channel. You can hit the notification bell so you don't miss out when we publish our live streams, product reviews, and more. Or if you're listening to us at your leisure, you can leave us a 5-star rating on whichever service you're using. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook and bookmark AV Forums for the latest reviews, news, and videos. I'm Kaz Harlow. Thank you for joining us, and good night.